Senate will come out of recess. I call the Senate to order, and I recognize Senator Bradley for a motion.
Good morning, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adjourn from the late session.
All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion to adjourn passes. We are now in the early session. The Senate will be attentive to our chaplain, the Reverend Mark Warren.
Thank you, Mr. President, and the Senate. Let's pray. There'll be many people this weekend who will flood our churches, and those who hold to a Christian faith will be celebrating the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We know that not all would say they align with that faith, and so we turn to something we all agree upon, which is charity and friendship and kindness. We would realize that's universal and is beneficial. Let us grow in those attributes. We're grateful for our senators, the hard work that they do for the 1.2, 1.3 million people that they represent. Their hard work in their committees, their hearings, debating legislation that would affect many people's lives. We're grateful for their hard work and service to the people of New Hampshire. We ask a special blessing over them today and for those who are preparing for this weekend, and that's important to them. Let them experience your joy and peace in their lives. Amen.
Senator Gray, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Any introduction of guests? Not looking too good. Without objection, today's FN report is adopted. Removed from the consent calendar, HB 1425 in Judiciary. Without objection, the following bills are special ordered to the next session. Education, House Bill 1653, Executive Department, CACR 21, and Judiciary, HB 1425. Senator Bradley moves that the consent calendar with the relevant amendments as printed in the day's calendar be adopted, and that all such bills found ought to pass be ordered as follows. FM bills not waived under Senate Rule 4-5 to the Committee on Finance. Non-FN bills approved for referral to Finance by the day's FN report to the Committee on Finance, and all other bills to third reading. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. The consent calendar is adopted. Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Capital Budget, to which was referred House Bill 122A, an act amending the capital appropriation for aviation hangar bay in the Department of Military Affairs and Veterans Services. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3-0. Senator Reagan for the committee.
Senator Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 122 ought to pass. During the last capital budget, there was an appropriation for a joint aviation hangar project between the Department of Safety and the Department of Military Affairs and Veterans Services. The project involved federal funds for the DMAVS portion and general fund bonds for the Department of Safety portion. After the capital budget was passed, the Department of Defense changed the criteria for building an Army hangar, but did not provide additional funding to cover the added cost. Therefore, the DMAVS hangar project is now on hold. In order for the Department of Safety's portion of the hangar project to move forward, this bill separates out the general funded portion of the project for the Department of Safety and leaves the federal money for the DMAVS portion. The Capital Budget Committee asks your support for the motion of ought to pass. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Reagan. The motion is ought to pass. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? The question is the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 122. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted and it's ordered to third reading. Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, to which was referred House Bill 169, an act establishing a commission to study the removal of unused utility poles following the transition of equipment, lines, cables to new utility poles. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 4-0. Senator Perkins, Quokka for the committee.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 169 ought to pass with amendment. HB 169 establishes a commission to study the removal of unused utility poles following the transition of equipment line and cable to new poles. This has been an ongoing, while not widespread, it has a significant effect on some towns. These utility poles are an eyesore and they can be hazardous to property owners. The amendment to the bill adds the Commissioner of the Department of Energy or his designee to be included in the commission. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass with amendment on HB 169. Thank you, Mr. President.
Perkins Quokka. The motion is ought to pass with amendment. The bill is now on second reading. First order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. You ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendments? Question is the adoption of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 169. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass as amended is adopted and it's ordered to third reading. Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, to which was referred House Bill 543, an act establishing a commission to study nuclear power nuclear reactor technology in New Hampshire. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 4-0. Senator Waters for the committee.
Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 543 ought to pass with amendment. House Bill 543 is an act establishing a commission to study nuclear power and nuclear reactor technology in New Hampshire. The House passed this bill in an effort to put together a group that could determine if there is anything the state of New Hampshire can do to try to advance the cause of nuclear energy within our state. It is important to look at these new nuclear technologies because it appears that both fossil fuels and renewable energies combined may not be able to satisfy all of our energy needs going forward. The amendment to the bill adds the Commissioner of the Department of Energy or designee to be included in the study commission. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee asks for your glowing support on the motion of ought to pass with amendment on House Bill 543. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Waters. The motion is ought to pass with amendment. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? The question is on the adoption of the committee amendment. You ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. The bill is still on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendments? Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to introduce Floor Amendment 1507S and ask to speak to my motion.
507 and may speak to his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment merely adds the Commissioner of the Department of Business and Economic Affairs or designee to the members.
The question is the adoption of Floor Amendment 1507. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is adopted. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendments. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended in House Bill 543. You ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass as amended is adopted and it's ordered to third reading. Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, to which was referred, House Bill 1005, an act relative to the creation of New Hampshire Low-Grade Timber and Wood Emerging Market Commission. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 4-0. Senator Perkins Quokka for the committee.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1005 ought to pass. HB 1005 establishes the New Hampshire Low-Grade Timber and Wood Emerging Market Commission to study the state of existing low-grade timber and market economy and new and emerging markets for low-grade timber and wood products. New Hampshire is the second most forested state in the country behind Maine, and the management of our forests is critical to the New Hampshire economy. This legislation is a signal to other areas around New England that New Hampshire does support the forest industry and that we need to work on leveraging our existing infrastructure and try to better our forest products industry. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass on HB 1005. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Perkins Quokka. The motion is ought to pass. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an important bill, given the evolution or devolution, if you will, of the timber industry. The importance of finding markets for this low-grade timber, certainly in the North Country and also in many of your districts as well, where logging and timber plays an important part, both in local revenues and in tourism. So I'd ask the committee to please, the Senate to please not only pass this bill, but advocate for it and to work with those members that are appointed to it to help our logging industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gaida. Senator Avon.
Support this bill as well, and seeing how that the bioplants, which use a lot of this low-grade timber to create energy, may be at risk, we need options for our timber industry. So I just want to plug that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Avon. The question is the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 1005. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted and it's ordered to third reading. Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, to which was referred, House Bill 1052, an act relative to the number of rounds of ammunition allowed for hunting regardless of firearm capacity. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 4-0. Senator Gaida for the committee.
Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1052 ought to pass. This bill is brought forth at the request of the Department of Fish and Game. The purpose is to clear up confusion regarding the number of rounds of ammunition allowed for hunting, regardless of firearm capacity. Fish and Game has always had the policy that it's how many rounds are loaded in the gun, not the actual capacity of the magazine, that matters. The bill also increases the firearm ammunition capacity from 5 rounds to 6 rounds in order to accommodate revolvers. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee asks for your support on this targeted legislation for ought to pass on House Bill 1052. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gaida. Motion is ought to pass. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 1052. You ready for the question? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted and it's ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred, House Bill 579, an act requiring notice to the public before immigration checkpoints are conducted. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3-2. Senator French for the committee.
Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 579, inexpedient to legislate. This bill would require the chief law enforcement officer to inform local media when he or she is informed by the Border Patrol of an immigration checkpoint. These checkpoints are conducted by the federal government, who is under no obligation to inform our local law enforcement agencies that they will be conducting them. Furthermore, it is not the job of the state to manage immigration within our borders. That is the jurisdiction of the feds. And finally, the requirements this places on our local law enforcement agencies are unclear and could be overly burdensome, especially to our smaller departments that operate in the northern part of the state. Therefore, the majority of the Judiciary Committee asks for your support in the motion of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 579. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator French. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any discussion? Senator Whitley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully rise against the committee recommendation of ITL. So this bill would, when informed by a federal agency, require state, county, or municipal law enforcement to provide the public with up to 24 hours of notice that a federal agency intends to conduct an immigration checkpoint. The notice shall disclose, if known, the date, municipality, and geographical area in which the checkpoint will occur. This legislation would bring immigration checkpoints under similar notice requirements to those already required for sobriety checkpoints. Importantly, this notice is designed to mitigate the significant intrusions on civil liberties that these immigration checkpoints have created. Federal immigration checkpoints in northern New Hampshire have become pervasive in recent years, and we know have been used for unlawful purposes. They have predominantly resulted in drug seizures, as well as intimidating and harassing New Hampshire drivers and passengers. It's important to note that these federal checkpoints are concerning and intrude on civil liberties because they detain thousands of individuals without reasonable suspicion or without probable cause of criminal activity. Both the New Hampshire and the U.S. Constitutions prohibit unlawful searches and seizures, which generally must be based on probable cause. One highly regulated exception is U.S. Customs and Border Enforcement checkpoints. Immigration checkpoints are permitted for areas within 100 miles of the U.S. border, but only for the sole purpose of preventing unlawful entry into the U.S. Unfortunately, the so-called immigration checkpoints we've seen in New Hampshire have been used for fishing expeditions for other unlawful purposes. So this bill, to mitigate these civil liberty intrusions, merely requires advance notice to the public. Again, similar to what we already provide for sobriety checkpoints. Under New Hampshire law, advance notice is provided. Under New Hampshire law, advance notice is provided for sobriety checkpoints in part to, as the Attorney General indicates in the 2020 Law Enforcement Manual, minimize fear and apprehension on the part of the motoring public. Indeed, the Attorney General's Law Enforcement Manual notes that the need for aggressive program notes the need for an aggressive program advance publicity. Our New Hampshire Supreme Court has looked favorably on advance notice in the context of sobriety, and this bill before us merely provides advance notice in the context of federal immigration checkpoints. So I just also wanted to point out that this legislation does not require state and local law enforcement to seek out this information about the federal immigration checkpoints. This legislation merely requires that local law enforcement provide this notice when they are informed by a federal agency. Finally, the bill gives law enforcement a whole host of flexibility regarding the method of public notice. So I think that this bill would serve as a really effective and important counterbalance to the unlawful, unnecessary, and ineffective federal immigration enforcement strategies. This bill would also send a message to the federal government that New Hampshire takes the civil liberties and liberty interests of our residents, of our visitors, of our businesses seriously, and that questionable federal law enforcement activities are not welcome in New Hampshire. The New Hampshire House of Representatives indicated its strong support for this bipartisan bill in a roll call vote of 254 to 85, and I hope we can come together in this body in a similar way. I ask my colleagues to vote against the ITL so that I might offer an alternative motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Whitley. Further discussion? Senator Gannon.
Intending to speak today. I don't have anything prepared, but I just have to comment on a few things. We do advance notice for sobriety checkpoints for a lot of reasons, but one good reason is I want to tell my kids, don't go on the road tonight. There's going to be cops, and so people are less apt to drive, so we're giving them notice so they won't drink and drive. It's a deterrent. I can differentiate that totally with what the Border Patrol is trying to do. The Border Patrol is trying to catch criminals, and if we give them advance notice, I don't know, it's probably a bad idea, Senator. to give criminals advance notice of where they're going to be. Then when you're coming over with illegal aliens, you're coming over with drugs, you're coming over with guns, things that the Border Patrol might have got notice of, you're giving warning to the very criminals. Just seems counterintuitive to me. Couple other things. There are laws in New Hampshire that, state laws, about state v. Copel is about deterrence, and, I'm sorry, it's about detaining people. You can't detain them in a car, but this is a brief stop. I've been stopped by the Border Patrol many times. I sell goods up in northern New Hampshire. When they stop me, it's usually every third car, I believe, and it's a random thing, and they say, "What are you doing here?" And I say, "I'm selling hanging stage curtains," and they let me go on. It's a very brief stop. So it doesn't amount to a custodial interrogation, as our state laws under Copel and Hunt require. Also, this morning, I got notice from the Border Patrol because I said, "What are you doing on these stops?" And they said, "Well," and they sent me some stuff at 9:01, so I just got it. So I'm not really familiar with it, but they did encounter 10,703 criminal non-citizens, some of them in New Hampshire. Criminal non-citizens with warrants, 1,904. On the border, they have encountered things that I don't want in the streets of New Hampshire: cocaine, methamphetamines, fentanyl, and other stuff. They've encountered gang members in New Hampshire, and I think if the federal government's trying to protect us, we shouldn't be interfering with them, trying to say where they're going to be on the roads. So I think that the motion before us is a very good motion, and we should go forward with it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gann. And Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our New Hampshire Constitution very clearly articulates that for the greater good, we as individuals surrender a small amount of our individual liberty. Might I remind this body that September 11th, 2001 was perpetrated by two people who entered the country through Canada and perpetrated the worst disaster, the worst terrorist act in our nation's history. I totally support surrendering a little bit of my autonomy in the hopes that we can allow the federal authorities to enforce their constitutional obligations to protect the citizens of our state and our nation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senate will come out of recess. Senator Perkins Coker. You have some guests.
I do. Hello. Everyone, please welcome the Little Harbor School fourth graders. They are visiting my now hometown of Portsmouth and made the trip up here. It's so nice to have you guys, and I hope you learn a lot. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have when we're done. So great to see you. Thank you, guys.
Senator Prentiss.
Mr. President, I rise in opposition to HB 579's recommendation for inexpedient to legislate. Can I speak?
Sure.
Sure. I'm sorry. What I'd like to just offer is a different perspective on this, although I agree with the comments that particularly my colleague from District 15 has shared. What I would like to also add to this conversation is that it was while I was on the city council, so we're talking at least 3 years ago, in the city of Lebanon, which is the home to the only academic medical center that is a trauma center and a major referral hospital in New Hampshire, receiving patients from both southern New Hampshire as well as from Vermont, a checkpoint that was held unnoticed on Interstate 89, held traffic up, including folks that were trying to get to one of the two hospitals that were in our district, including ambulances. Prior notice, and we talked about this as a council, and we worked on this in a subcommittee, prior notice would also, and really importantly, allow people who are trying to make plans for how to get patients to a hospital, how to get family members to appointments, and folks to get to work. So there are larger implications. I agree with the points that have been raised again by my colleague from District 15, but I want to add that perspective is in that particular point, people could not get around this and it held traffic up, and we should be concerned about those referral patterns and getting patients to hospitals, doctor's appointments, and folks to work. Thank you very much.
President, I rise in support of House Bill 579 and the inexpedient to legislate motion. We're talking, quite frankly, in many instances about apples and oranges when we compare what this bill does to a sobriety checkpoint. We have control over those sobriety checkpoints. That is a state function, and we decided, let's notice people. Let's let them know that there's going to be a sobriety checkpoint. So if you want to avoid any kind of traffic backup, you can do that. This is different. This is the federal government doing its job. And so now we're going to say, well, if you're going to be doing something, please let us know. And now we're putting a burden on our local police departments to notify the media. To what purpose, Mr. President, is what I ask. Because we know with the sobriety checkpoints, they get noticed. People go, okay, well, I'm going out tonight with my friends. I'm going to be drinking, and they're going to have a sobriety checkpoint, so I'm just going to go around it. I'm going to find an alternate route. And if we do this, the same thing is going to happen. People are going to go, oh, well, they're going to have a checkpoint, immigration checkpoint on Route 89. We're just going to avoid that altogether. We're just going to go down a different road. Does it solve the problem? Really? We are not responsible for immigration. That is not our job. That is the job of the federal government, and we all know that they're not doing their job. We have people going down to the border in Texas with Mexico, looking at it. Even our own Senator Hassan went down there and said, well, maybe we need to do something about the wall. There are holes in the wall. This is not our responsibility. We get inconvenienced when we're on the road every day. Whether there's an accident on a road, everyone stops. We can't go. Animals come out in the road. We have to stop. School buses, we have to stop. It's frustrating because we all have places we need to go and things we need to do. But we stop because it's the right thing to do. So I don't see what the problem here is, Mr. President. We know we have people in our country who are here illegally. They sidestep all our federal laws, all our rules, everything. So now we want to say, well, okay, here in New Hampshire, don't worry about it. Come through Canada into New Hampshire, and we're just going to let you go. I don't think that's a message that we as citizens of this state want to send to the rest of the country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Carson. Senator Whitley.
I'll defer to my minority leader.
Senator Susie.
And I too rise in opposition to the pending motion, and I do so for a number of reasons. And I'm not going to restate what some of my colleagues have said here, but I do want to clarify. We do have a New Hampshire Constitution, and we do have search and seizure laws. And there have been some of these stops made that have ended up with convictions being overturned because they're not lawful. You need probable cause to stop somebody in New Hampshire. New Hampshire has one of the oldest constitutions. We have some of the stiffest requirements for search and seizure because we believe in liberty. We believe that people should be able to come and go in our state. And look, we're not Texas. We're not the southern. We're New Hampshire. We have a little border with Canada. And I think we need to be focused on what we need to do for our people here in the state of New Hampshire. I think my colleague from District 5 probably made the most reasonable point of all, which is, at the very least, could we let law enforcement know that this is going to happen? Could we let emergency management, who are trying to transport patients who need critical care, know so that they can get through? I mean, this is just a simple request, which, as another colleague mentioned, passed the House 254 to 85. I mean, that's pretty significant. I mean, it's bipartisan, very simple. And you know what? The federal government may or may not tell us when these checkpoints are going to happen. All this says is if they do, let people know. Let people know so they can plan. This is very reasonable, practical legislation, and I really hope that we can overturn this inexpedient motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Susie. The question is the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 579. Any further discussion? Roll call has been requested by Senator Bradley, seconded by Senator Gaida. You ready for the question? The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Bradley.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentiss.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator French.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Rishardi.
Yes.
Senator Kahn.
No.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Avard. Senator Rosenwald. Senator Carson.
Yes.
Senator Whitley.
No.
Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Reagan. Senator Susie.
No.
Senator Birdsell. Senator D'Alessandro.
No.
Senator Perkins Coca.
No.
Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Sherman.
No.
Senator Morse.
Yes. The ayes have it, 14 to 10. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. Recognize Senator Bradley for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Believe it or not, I move that the Senate adjourn from the early session, that the business of the late session be in order at the present time, that all bills and resolutions ordered to third reading be by this resolution read a third time, all titles be the same as adopted, and that they be passed at the present time.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The early session is adjourned. We are now in the late session. Are there any announcements to come before the Senate? Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to remind the members of Senate Judiciary that we will be meeting at 10:30 in room 100 to exec some bills. Thank you.
Senator
Energy, we're meeting 15 minutes after session. Thank you.
Senator Bradley.
The HHS committee will meet at 10:30 because we're actually holding public hearings. And while I have the chance to be up here in personal privilege, I think all of us need to call out and say thank you very much to all the staff that are working overtime to help all of us with the incredible workload. I would have asked that they all be here for this, thank you, because I think it's well-deserved. But they're all writing hearing reports and getting ready to conduct hearings. So let's give them a big round of applause.
Senator Prentiss.
Mr. President, unanimous consent?
Yes.
Okay. In 2010, my sister-in-law, Kristen Lobner, 2 weeks after having her second child, my goddaughter, Vivian, suffered a stroke. Now, my brother David recognized early that there was something that had changed, and he called 911. She was transported to a hospital and ultimately ended up in Boston and fully recovered as a young woman, postpartum, at 36 years old, from this stroke. She moved on from that and started running as part of her recovery, and ultimately ran the Boston Marathon. I believe it was in 2018 as a part of a group called Teddy's Team. I think we all know Teddy Bruschi, and Teddy Bruschi has not suffered just one, but 2 strokes. And although it changed his ability to play ball, what he has done is spent the rest of his time trying to promote awareness of recognizing stroke and activating the system early to get folks the help that they need so they can recover like my sister-in-law did. The race is next week. Next Monday is the Boston Marathon. My brother David is running this year as part of Teddy's team to raise awareness. But we have 2 Granite Staters. And I didn't have the opportunity to speak with the senators who are covering those districts for those Granite Staters who will be running on Teddy's team next week. One is from Senator Ricciardi's district, District 9. Joanna Seeley is going to be running as part of, again, honoring stroke awareness. And in Merrimack, we have a Nathan Fluent who is going to be running, again, as part of Teddy's team. And as I wrap up my comments this morning, of course, wishing my brother and my family well, I just want to remind us all of something called Be Fast. And this is how we recognize if somebody is suffering a stroke. B is for balance. Someone has a change in their balance. Note it, ask about it, see what we can do. E is for eyesight. Is there a change? Are they stating that there is a change in their eyesight? F is for facial drooping. Is there a change in the way that their face appears to you, and should you be concerned about that? A is for arm weakness. Is there a change in their ability to grasp, to raise their arms? S is for speech difficulties, which is one of the most common ways that this gets picked up. And T is about time. Call 911. Thank you for your time. Wishing our Granite Staters well as they run next week. And Teddy's team, I know there are more running, but I want to again highlight the folks that are running for stroke awareness. And good luck to my brother, David Lobner. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Del Sangro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unanimous consent. I'd like to talk about a classmate of mine at the University of New Hampshire who passed away, class of 1961. Rod Wharton from Rochester, New Hampshire. In high school, Rod Wharton was the quarterback of a football team that went undefeated for 2 years under the guidership of Coach Lenny DiRico, who passed away. Wharton went on to the University of New Hampshire and was a star athlete in baseball. He was shortstop for the baseball team. Rod Wharton, myself, and Danny Parr would have lunch every day and eat Mrs. Parker's wonderful delights at Theta Kappa Phi fraternity. You know, in this life, I talk about life being all about relationships. You gather bonds. We gathered a bond at UNH. He married Norma Bowden, Her father was Bowden Oil in Rochester. Father built a compound where all of the kids lived in this compound. I think he had 10 kids. He built houses for all 10 of them, and they lived in a compound. Hot Rod goes on to be a football coach. And for 43 years, he was a great football coach. Championship after championship after championship. The state of Maine, where he coached, Marshwood High School, named him the greatest high school football coach in the history of the state. Bob Kraft had him down at the Patriots game because he won 300 games as a football coach. Came to New Hampshire and went to St. Thomas High School. 15 years at St. Thomas. 4 state championships at St. Thomas Aquinas High School. He and his wife had 3 children. One of them is the athletic director at Dover High School as we speak. Another one is a nurse, young lady is a nurse. Another son is an athletic trainer at a prep school. Wharton and his wife, Norma, married for almost 60 years. Hot Rod passed away and had a very debilitating disease, Parkinson's. But he remained coaching as long as he could. Because the greatest accolade that you can give to a human being is call me coach. Just call me coach. What does that mean? It means you're involved in the life of these players, in determining what their futures are and staying with them for their future. Rod Wharton did that. And I say to you, Mr. President, that the great things that people do, often pass away immediately. But the legacy left by Ron Wharton is in the kids that he coached. It's the students that he taught. And it's people like me who were his friends all through his life. What better accolade can we give to Coach Wharton than to say, Wharton, Hot Rod, thank you. Thank you for all you did for everybody else. Thank you. Your memory will live forever. The work that you have done will carry on forever. And more of us should fall in line with the goals and objectives of Rod Wharton of Rochester, New Hampshire. A Red Raider from the get-go and one of the truly, truly great Americans. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro. Senator Kahn.
Unanimous consent, Mr. President. I just want to wish my colleagues and all Granite Staters for this weekend, whereas we celebrate the Easter tradition, the Passover tradition, the Ramadan traditions, that we enjoy the holidays with our families and think about our communities and the world. The tradition of Passover is one where it is the celebration of freedom from oppression, the oppression of slavery, of poverty, of wars that may be taking place in other parts of the world. It's an opportunity for us to share how we can respond as individuals and broaden our sense of community to not just our families, but think about those that aren't at a table with theirs or have had their lives disrupted because of conflicts in other parts of the world. And I wish you all a wonderful holiday weekend. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kahn. Any other announcements? Without objection, all personal privilege and unanimous consent shall be entered into the permanent journal of the Senate. Is there any further business? I'd just like to explain where we're at in the session. Right now, we have 62 pieces of legislation coming in for next Thursday. I anticipate that's going to go up to some number greater than 75, maybe 80 by next week. So Wednesday, we'll go back to be caucus for us on the Republican side. I'm assuming the Democrats will do something similar. Thursday will be a session day that will probably go into the evening because it's not heavily loaded with consent calendar items. There's a lot of debates that are going to happen. I thank you now for what you're doing. We didn't design this in the Senate that the House was going to send this much legislation over to the Senate. We all wanted to get out of here before the end of May this year for a lot of reasons, and we're coming up against a crunch for a schedule. If we do get to 80 pieces of legislation, we're still at 125 pieces that we have to get through committees and meet a deadline of getting to finance of May 5th. So there's a lot to do. And when it comes to amendments, and Senator Birdsall, I heard you in the hallway talking about legislative services helping us. We got to help ourselves too, because a lot of what happens is in a time crunch like this, the night before, we're trying to fix things in the Senate, which are real difficult situations. Not something that you can think in 20 minutes and then get a drafter to do it in the next couple of hours. So as we go through the next couple of weeks, it's going to be difficult, but please, if you're going to work on an amendment or you're going to work with another group to change the thought in here, and whether it's CACRs or anything, do it early. I mean, we still have Mondays and Fridays if we have to. I know fiscal's meeting this week, but we have opportunities to do it and do it right. 205 pieces going into next Thursday is a lot of legislation. If it can't get done right, well, I have a theory about that. So you should be very careful. If it can't get through the Senate and get the work it needs, there's always next year. And that's how the Senate should be looking at things. But it's going to be a challenging time, and it's going to be challenging in some evenings and Monday and Friday, I'm sure, for all of you. We can't change these deadlines. So we have to work through them, and I will do the best to help you. Many of you have already been up to say this is mission impossible. We don't give up. None of us. Never seen you guys do that ever, and we're not going to start doing it now. It's just do what's right for the people in New Hampshire. If it can't be done, it's not getting done, and we can work on it next year. So anyhow, I've spilled my piece. The committees, first one will get started at 10:15 and two others at 10:30. I appreciate what you're doing today, and if you could get out a bunch of legislation, it's going to be a long Thursday next week. Recognize Senator Bradley for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the business of the day being completed. Right. That the Senate recess to the call of the chair for the purposes of introducing legislation, referring bills to committee, scheduling hearings, sending and receiving messages, vacating bills, and processing enrolled bill reports and amendments. And when we recess to the call of the chair.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The Senate is in recess to the call of the chair.